from Sugar Spun Run, and today I am making a creamy chicken noodle soup. The air is starting to get a little bit chillier around here. Flu and cold season is right around the corner, so I figured this was a good time to share my favorite chicken noodle soup recipe. Now, I do make this recipe slightly more indulgent. It is a creamy chicken noodle soup. I absolutely love it. My kids love it. I think you're going to love it too. So let's get started. We start over on the stovetop. You're going to need a large, heavy bottomed pot. I am using my enameled cast iron soup pot. A Dutch oven works great, or you can just use a large pot. Now to this, I am going to start by adding 1/3 cup, which is 5 1/3 tablespoons of butter. I'm using salted butter today. You could use unsalted. You'll just have to use a little bit salt later on, but we'll be tasting our soup to make sure it's seasoned properly, so whichever you use will be fine. Now I'm going to turn my stovetop to medium heat, and I'm going to let this butter cook until it's melted. Okay, once our butter is nice and melted, we can add our veggies. We're going to start with 1 heaping cup of diced yellow onion. This is about 1 medium, slightly larger than medium onion. We're also going to be adding 2 cups of carrots. I've cut these into coins, and because, purely for vanity, because I wanted the carrots to look pretty on camera, I did peel them before I cut them. Gives them a nicer color, but you can certainly leave the peel on. I also have 2 cups of celery. This was about 4 stalks of celery. And you can see I have cut this up as well. I've sliced it. Now we'll give everything a nice stir, get all the veggies coated with that butter, and we are going to cook them until they're nice and soft. All right, once your veggies are nice and soft, we'll add our garlic. You'll need a tablespoon of minced garlic for this recipe. Drop that right in there. Oh man. We are not going to waste any of that garlic. And just stir this in and cook the garlic until it's nice and fragrant. This takes about 30 seconds. So it happens really fast. I'll just keep stirring that in, keep it moving. You don't want the garlic to burn. You know if you burned garlic, it has a bitter smell. It'll make your food taste not great. It's not as easy to do as some people will lead you on to believe, but I do like to keep it moving and just cook it until it's fragrant. All right, so this is a creamy soup. So what I like to do is I like to thicken it a little bit with some flour. I have 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and it's covered. One moment. We'll sprinkle this over the veggies. And we're also going to add a teaspoon of salt. This is table salt. 3/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper. 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. 1/2 teaspoon of dried thyme, and a 1/2 teaspoon of dried parsley, and I definitely said those backwards, but it's a 1/2 teaspoon of each. Now mix everything in, and you want to get all of that flour absorbed by the veggies and that melted butter. And this is getting hot. The flour here is going to add some body to the soup and give it a creamier texture, make it a little thicker, and I like to add the spices here too because they can really infuse into the veggies here and just really helps develop the flavor. Once that flour is absorbed, we'll just continue to cook, still stirring for about another 30 seconds. All right, so for today's recipe, I actually list a range of how much broth you need, but we're going to start with 6 cups. Now I'm going to drizzle this in slowly. And while I'm doing this, I am using my spoon to scrape the bottom of the pan because there are going to be some browned bits that formed on the bottom of your pan, and these are flavor bombs. You want them mixed into your soup. You don't want them to just sit there. Plus then they're difficult to clean. No, don't waste them, get them worked into your soup. See, you can see that there? Yeah, I want that in my soup. So we're adding this slowly. Things are already smelling amazing here. Now I call for 6 to 8 cups of broth, but I start with 6, and then I may add additional after I've added the noodles, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. All right, that was 4. There's 5. And there is 6. All right, here's where we're going to add our chicken. You need 1.5 pounds of chicken for today's recipe. You could use all chicken breast or you could use all chicken thighs, but I personally really like to use a blend of chicken breast and chicken thighs. I really like to use the dark meat because it adds so much flavor. Just a couple of thighs here. And the chicken breast that I'm using was very large, and I want my chicken to cook all at the same time. So I've cut this into pieces to make each piece about the same size as the thighs. All right, make sure that chicken is submerged. And we're going to bring this pot to a boil. Your heat should only be on medium or a notch above medium at this point. I don't like to crank up the heat here. Okay, once your pot is boiling, we are going to cover it with a lid. We're going to reduce the heat, and we're going to continue to cook this until the chicken has cooked through. For me, this usually takes about 15-20 minutes. So we'll know that the chicken is done cooking when we can shred it easily with a fork. So this looks great. So I'm actually going to remove it to a plate to shred it. You could cut the chicken instead, but I usually just shred it. All right, let's add the last of the chicken back in. Give everything a nice stir. And now here is where the noodles come into play. You'll need 8 ounces of egg noodles for today's recipe. You can use those curly spiral ones, but I prefer just like classic noodles. I also have a recipe for homemade egg noodles on my website, and I've made a video of it. They are amazing, but you will definitely, most likely, I should say, need to add more broth as they really soak up the moisture. Now we'll add in these egg noodles. And we'll stir these in, make sure they're nicely submerged and mixed up into that pot. And we're going to cook until the noodles are cooked through. Check the package instructions for how long this takes. I find with these noodles, it's usually like 8 to 10 minutes. All right, once the noodles are cooked through, we're going to reduce our heat to low. Peek around my soup pot there. And here we will add our cream. This is what makes the soup creamy, obviously. We're going to drizzle in a ½ cup of heavy cream. And here's where you'll see if you need to add more broth or not. If the mixture just seems kind of dry, you can add more. This is mostly going to be an issue if you are using noodles that are a little more dry, a little more floury, like the homemade noodles. I also will recommend keeping some broth handy in case you have leftovers, because as this soup sits, those noodles are just going to absorb all of that extra broth. So if you're going to be reheating it, you're going to need more broth. All right, and once the cream is heated through, we're going to do a taste test. Don't burn yourself. I think we need just a little bit more salt. You could also add any pepper if you need it at this point. Stir that in. Perfect. And that's really it. Let's go ahead and I'm going to pour myself a nice bowl of this soup. It's going to be a great lunch for today. It's creamy, but it's just the right balance of creamy. It's not too much, not too rich. And the soup has such a great flavor. And that is how you make my all-time favorite creamy chicken noodle soup. I really hope you enjoy this one. If you tried it home, please leave me a comment. I always love hearing from you. I'm gonna set this down because that's actually really, really hot right now. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. It's too hot for me to hold it. Probably would be wise for me to wait for this, but patience is not my strong suit. This is amazing. It's hot, but it's amazing. You want to help me out here? Do you have a little bit of a cold going on?
Yeah.
You know what makes you feel better when you have a cold?
No.
Chicken noodle soup. So I'm making you chicken noodle soup. It's not flea and tick season. It's flu and cold season.